that. Even my mama thinks that my mind is gone, but I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, you know that's unheard of. You better watch how you're talking and where you're walking, or you and your homies might be lying and chalk. I really hate the trip, but I gotta low. As they croak, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of G the little homies wanna be like, on my knees in the night, saying prayers in the street light. Been spending most of their lives living in the gangster's paradise. We've been spending most of their lives living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. Look at the situation they got me facing. I can't live a normal life. I was raised by the state, so I gotta be down with the...
Okay, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Started with my favorite gangster rap clip, which crossed officially now 10,000 views. There's an initiative now that I highlighted in the legislature of New York to criminalize criticizing judges in full violation of the First Amendment. I'm not sure it's yet the law, but there's certainly moves there. And I keep posting this reel in order for people to realize that they're criminals, again, among judges, and unfortunately not a few. So it's all documented. There are judges who went to jail, federal jail, state jail, judges who were removed, judges who were removed or resigned after complaints. This is a very prevalent phenomenon, so I will keep posting it as long as we have the First Amendment. Welcome to the show. I see that people are joining. That's the point. And we have a brand new guest here, T. Matthew Phillips and I, all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada. But our guest is from Israel, Martin Alfie. Martin, thank you very much for joining. We had a preliminary conversation.
Thank you.
But you know, it's very important for us here, for me in particular, and for Matthew as well, to present to the audience the fact that the tyranny, what we call what is Holocaust, is actually across the world. It's everywhere, and we had guests from Netherlands, we had guests from Canada, we have somebody who will come hopefully soon from Australia, but you are the first person from Israel. So thank you very much. The time on your end is, I think, 1 a.m., something like that.
Oh, yeah. Now it's 1:22 a.m.
Wow. Okay. So thank you very much for finding the time. And I appreciate you look fresh, you know. So it sounds like we can go and go on and on. So I will from time to time acknowledge the audience. Justice J is here. She's in. Hey guys, been a couple of weeks. I missed the lives. Thank you very much. I see other people are watching. We'll post it also on later on your channel, Martin, and on YouTube. But anyway, so the reason we connected, Martin, if I may present to the audience, is the petition that you were one of the initiators of. I made the post of it. I reposted it on my Facebook page, and to the audience that I'm very fortunate to have. I think it got hundreds of views so far. Hopefully it got some signatures based on that. You know, the tagline that I used was that it's, again, the family court tyranny is everywhere. And you come with a personal story from Israel. So maybe we'll just start with your connection to this whole topic, and then Matthew will follow with me, questions, any clarifications. So thank you again, and please tell us your story.
Okay, so my story goes back 12 years ago when, I mean, my kids nowadays, they're 14 years old, and the story goes back almost 14 years old, 14 years back in time. But I try by all means to, you know, to make things right after my children's birth, and nothing whatsoever succeeded. So I started the divorce process, okay, just to discover how rotten and corrupt things were. I mean, right from the beginning, they tried to separate my kids from me. And as time passed by, things happened. And when I say things happened, you could tell that there was an organized plan in order to separate my kids from me, and that included violence. Okay, first at the beginning, I could tell that my ex-wife was trying very hard to to make out of me an angry man and to beat her. But I'm a quiet person, so she didn't succeed in her endeavor. Um, so she moved on to my kids. So my kids would appear with bruises on their bodies on a daily basis, and after 2 months, more or less, they'd appear with burns on their bodies. So I remember taking my kid to hospital, and eventually came a detective, a police detective from the police. They have to inquire minors in order to verify what happened. So my little girl had burns here, at the left hand side of her right eye, and she blamed her mother. She At that time she spoke very little, but she spoke. Okay, and she blamed her mother for doing that, for doing the burn. And the social worker from the hospital was a good worker. She was a good one, but things change when the social worker from the social services intervened, and I could tell by the conversation. I mean, I was present at the telephone conversation between the detective and the social worker. And for instance, she said, if you're talking about a man, write this and this. And if we are talking about a woman, write this and this. I mean, it was outrageous. And that was just the beginning. Okay, as time passed by, and that social worker lied in her report, writing all kind of lie that she wrote that I was obsessive, that I wanted to avenge, to take revenge from the divorce process, and all kind of lies. Eventually, time passed by, and I forgot. I mean, I filed loads of complaints at the police station saying that their mother, I mean, my children's mother, were abusing them. Okay, she was beating them. She was making bruises on their bodies, and burning their bodies. Um, but eventually, the police closed all the complaints, and time passed by. The situation got worse and worse. I mean, I could feel that I was losing my kids. Okay, and it was really hard, but I didn't quit. And it was the year 2015, and I decided to file a lawsuit against the social worker. And eventually, after 3 years, I won the lawsuit. At first stage, she lost her immunity. I mean, the judge, a female one, she was a good one. Very, very, I should say, very awkward. Okay, very, very weird for a female judge to take the immunity of a social worker, but she did. Okay, and at a second stage, um, she lost the lawsuit, and I got money. I mean, it was not that. a high amount of money, but then again, I got some money. Um,
So just to summarize, to make it maybe more chapter, like for the viewers,
yes,
all the time that this divorce started and you made the complaints, you did not have custody of your children, right?
no, no,
Hmm.
no.
How?
I didn't have custody. I mean, I could, yeah, I could meet my children, yes,
Mhm.
and they would sleep at my place and all. And I want to add something that's very very important. Right from the beginning, I recorded every conversation, and also I shot on video every single thing that happened with my ex-wife, and also all the conversations going on with the social worker, at the police station, everything at all, and they knew that. So all this kind of material gave me leverage against them. Okay, and that's why they didn't take it hard on me. Okay, because
That's
they
that's
knew that
always the
it's
that's
yes
always
that
the advice that everybody who goes through family court, right? So everything has to be recorded.
yes. And after I won the lawsuit, my lawsuit against the social worker, I had leverage because I could prove that the social services were lying, and they committed a crime against humanity. I mean, my children were abused, and they didn't defended them. I mean, they didn't took their side, but their mothers. And to cut it short, nowadays, I mean, that woman has a file at the prosecutor's office for child abuse. Still, she has custody of my children. Still, I have to pay child support, huge amounts of child support sums monthly. Um, and that's it. I've been trapped in Israel for 12 years, ever since the divorce process started. And we could highlight perhaps, if you will, we could highlight 4 points that are very very important. First of all, we every single Jew coming to Israel doesn't know that he can be trapped in Israel. I mean, it's very important for people, and especially for men, to know that if they come to Israel and they begin a divorce process, they can be trapped here. They cannot get out of Israel, which is a crime against humanity. The basic law of Israel permits every single man freedom to go out of the country and to enter the country. But eventually, they violate that very basic right of every single man: the liberty, the freedom to get out of the country and get in the country. Okay, so I've been suffering from that crime against humanity for 12 years now, and
Let's
I
let's
have
let's pause it. If
yes,
Yeah, just because that's a very important point that I agree with you that the audience should probably know, those who will watching now. By the way, we have a good crowd here, so thanks everyone. John, thank you for joining. Um, what those people who are posting comments, I will pull them up from time to time just to make it interactive. But this is what you're described so far. It's not novel. It's not shocking to anyone who goes through family court anywhere, in the U.S. including, right. So the lies of social workers, the immunity that they have, the fighting for years, the fight that you have to fight, right, in order to achieve some sort of justice, with the complete ignoring of any complaints. So that's very typical, right, in every country. But what you are describing is that the prohibition on exiting the country of Israel, which is the land of Israel, is holy and and a very beautiful place, right? But the country of Israel itself, the location is pretty small, rather small, and you are essentially locked there. You cannot leave the borders by any means, by plane, by train. There are no train communication,
no,
also not by boat. and you've been essentially trapped, as you described it, for 12 years, right?
Right,
Yeah.
and if you will,
Mhm.
it is most like an open prison.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
More like
just if
yes,
people cannot wrap their head around it, but it's as if, let's say, my case is in New York, and I wouldn't be allowed to leave the state of New York, right? So I cannot go to Pennsylvania, I cannot go, to New Jersey. I'm just locked inside the state. Not to mention, not to travel to Europe. Not that those who are entangled in these troubles or court proceedings can afford any particular travel, right? But to be locked in specific geographic location for over a decade, that's insane. Uh, Matthew, what would you say? The freedom of movement is fundamental constitutional right everywhere.
I would totally agree with you on that. And, you know, the same thing I believe applies to us. If I wanted to go to London for a week or to Paris, I wouldn't, of course, I don't have the money to do that. Nobody in family court does because we're all destitute in fighting this. But if I did have the opportunity, I don't know, to go to Mexico for a couple of weeks, it's my understanding that I cannot leave the country. They will not
right,
allow my passport to be processed. And I just think that goes back to the mentality of the plantation mentality that slaves cannot leave the plantation. And I think that's what they're doing to us when they turn you into a child support obligor. You are essentially a slave, and they're telling us, hey, you're a slave, you cannot leave the plantation. I think it's a gross violation of the right to travel for Americans, and I think it's a violation of a basic human right to be free and to move. So I think it's really a horrible thing. But then again, I've never had the occasion to go anywhere, and I don't think I could afford an airline ticket anyway. But if I could, I should be able to leave. But of course, they don't want you. It's part of the punishment. They want to make sure their money, they can get a hold of it and get a hold of you if they want to try to collect. So that's my thoughts. But
Yeah, so that's actually, the egregious nature of it is very hard to describe, because let's say, in your example, right? Let's say you want to come and visit me in New York. You're still capable of doing that potentially, right? Maybe you cannot travel to Cancun, right, or or somewhere else, but at least within America, and it's a huge country, right? There's some there's opportunity, to clear your head to go somewhere else. Israel is a small country, and you can cross it within a day, basically. Maybe from Eilat to Metula, right? Not to say just from the sea to the border with Jordan. It's just couple hours. That's it. So the experience that the Martin is describing of being actually in open jail is very, very vivid, and not to mention that this thing lasts for over a decade for him. The stories that I hear are horrible. So in order for somebody to leave, they need to deposit something like 1,000,000 shekels, so hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, Martin, in order to
right,
potentially leave the country.
right.
So,
Yes,
so what you're saying is very, very insidious, because the government plays a very um, deceitful role. On one hand, they say, okay, all Jews, right, from the diaspora can come to Israel, essentially come to your homeland, right? But when these people come, they are completely chained. And I
right.
personally know many stories like that. And, it's actually, I think it's very important to have you on the show and for people to see and witness
yes.
somebody who cannot leave the country. Now, okay, so I didn't mean to interrupt your exposure, what the courts have done to you. But let's go back to the key theme, if you will, of the petition, the document that you prepared, I know, with other fathers. So what is that? Again, I posted it, and I will post the links afterward, in the comments of the stream. But what are you trying to achieve? What are your expectations? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Well, as you put it at the beginning of your show, I'm one of the initiators of the petition. What we are trying to do is to bring the voice of many aggrieved fathers that has been suffering for the last, I don't know, perhaps 20 years from now. and we want those voices to be heard in the media, okay? Because we are not talking about just one person here. We are talking about many aggrieved fathers that have been suffering from the corrupt system in Israel. Perhaps, as you put it, it's going on. It's happening all over the world. But I'm talking about what's going on here in Israel. We, if you will, as Jews, we cannot let ourselves be like other countries around the world, because if this country goes south, to put it simple, well, we don't have any other place to go. We are living reality nowadays. We all are seeing what's going on all around the world in regard to the anti-Semitism. So, I mean, to get it sure, I mean, they are destroying the country in every sense, and we cannot let ourselves be like any other country around the world. There's a very corrupt legal system going on in Israel. There's no will to change it at all. I mean, they move forward with it, along with it, and I mean, and they just keep adding fathers to the aggrieved to the lines of aggrieved fathers, and numbers keep growing up. Okay, so we want to make public that situation at first stage, and perhaps later on we want those voices to be heard in the media, perhaps in the US, in Europe, every single place in the world that we can do that, and perhaps take legal action against the state of Israel for committing crimes against humanity.
So let's maybe just dive deeper into that. We have the benefit of a licensed attorney on the live stream. What type of legal action? What do you have in mind? What were you discussing? If you can disclose or talk about that.
Well, I'd rather not talk about that at this stage. But yes, we are thinking about taking a legal action against the state of Israel. And aggrieved fathers who are seeing your show, watching your show now, they're most invited to sign up the petition. We can assure you that at least we're gonna try doing something with it in order to change, to veer the situation to a more positive side for us, aggrieved fathers. Okay. There's something that, well, that I don't know. There are many things to talk about. You just lead the way.
Yeah. Okay. I wanna Matt. You have any comment in for now in the interim?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was wondering also. We can bring lawsuits. For example, I'm in Nevada, and I can sue the state of Nevada, or I could sue the county. Where my case resides, but it seems almost futile in many respects to expect that the people who are, putting one over on you, to have them correct the situation. And I've heard several people talk about wanting to bring some kind of petition in the United Nations. But I wonder, would the United Nations be would they be the same? It seems to me the United Nations is completely controlled by America, at least from the perceptions I have. And so I'm thinking that would probably be a dead end also to go to the United Nations. But when I hear you talking about crimes against humanity, I absolutely agree with that, because it's really genocide. When they separate the parents from the children, they're
Right.
completely erasing that child's one half of their life. And,
Right.
they used to do that here in America. They would take the Native Americans and take the children away from the Native American Indians and force those children to go to the American school and make them teach English, read English. And, but that was a crime against humanity too. And I think that's what's going on right now. And so I think the issue is, where is the best place to file a claim for crimes against humanity? Where is the best place to file a claim for this kind of genocide? Again, I don't know if the UN would be any better,
Well,
but
yeah, you're talking about a very important issue here, because it's not we are not talking only about legal system, but political relationships between countries. Okay, so when we reach the minimum of 500 people, 500 Greek fathers, we will look for the best channel in order to sue Israel for committing crimes against humanity. Okay, I want to highlight, before I forget, I want to highlight a very important issue, and that is that we have Jews, we have and especially Jews coming from the diaspora. We have great expectations about Israel, and we see we see that everything is good in Israel and for Israel. Okay, but when we are outside Israel, the Jewish Agency, or Nefesh by Nefesh in the case of the U.S., the Jewish Agency doesn't tell people, especially fathers, men, what can happen if you divorce. I mean, if you start a divorce process in Israel, they don't tell you that you can be trapped in Israel, and that Israel
They
commits.
don't tell you anywhere,
No, no. I mean, no. I'm whenever. And listen, this is a very common phenomenon. When you tell people that Israel commits crimes against humanity, and Israel has tragedy inside the country, they say it's not real. I mean, you're crazy. I mean, it's not. It's not. It can't be real. Israel is the land, the promised land, and the land for Jews. They cannot persecute you, and that is the point. Israel persecutes divorced fathers, and for the last 30 years, Israel has been doing so. I mean, all the feminist groups, along with the state of Israel, they have built a killing machine. They persecute fathers and they kill them. And in order to kill a person, you don't have to hold a gun. You don't have to have a knife or a gun. There are many ways of killing a man. So Israel basically for instance, blocks your bank accounts. They trap you inside of Israel. They take 100% of your salary, of your income. Then you don't have any money in order to survive. There are Greek fathers living in the streets. They are homeless. They have lost their kids. They have lost the reason to live, and there's a rate of 300 fathers committing suicide in Israel because they have lost their faith, their reason to live. They have lost everything at all. And that's happening in Israel, the land of Jews, the promised land. So, if you will, and if I may, my advice to men living outside Israel is, or would be, do not come here. Do not come to Israel, because eventually, if you want to build up a family in the traditional way and you start a divorce process, you're going to be trapped here. You won't be able to get out, okay? And eventually you will end up in the streets without nothing at all. So do not come here. Look for another place in the globe, which is quite spread, quite big, okay? But do not come here. look for another place to be. Do not come here. That's my advice to men especially.
Okay, Martin. So that's very very I would say tragic or very serious warning that you are giving here for the audience, and I want to acknowledge the participation. I see that Christina Millet, a fantastic fighter, a mother, joined the show. Justice J is active in the comments. Eli Evans, he's a fellow fighter here in New York, as also a Jewish person who comments a lot. But there's a lot to unpack here, and I am Jewish myself, but I did not start my activism as a Jew or as an Israeli. It's part of my biography, right? And it's a very important aspect of spirituality. That's something that my connection to the roots, that it was actually forced on me to some extent by the divorce process, because it invites a lot of self-reflection. But fundamentally, why I'm trying to reach the wide audience, and to some extent, modest extent, I'm successful in that, is to highlight the fact that it's not an Israeli issue, it's not a Jewish issue, it's a worldwide issue. It's a totalitarianism issue. We are just going through a replay of the Holocaust, right? And Holocaust, people emphasize the Jewish victims, but many more non-Jews perished during the Holocaust. Germans, Russians, Americans, Europeans, right? Because once the totalitarian regime takes hold, it doesn't care whom to kill, whom to murder, right? That's just it's suppressing the population. It's suppressing the population, and some would say depopulating, right? The the population. So and that's I think what we need to be focusing on, because and you are there, right? And I live a significant chunk of my life in Israel. I'm grateful to be in the country of the United States, because I think the United States right now is the only mass of land that stands between full world takeover by these tyrants, right, and the rest of the world. Still, and I think the difference is the fact that people here have the memory of the Constitution, right? So not so long ago, and Matthew will correct me on and add, people or pupil, actually students in schools, they were taught the Constitution. Some places they still say the Pledge of Allegiance, right? American exceptionalism and the land of the free is still the ethos, is still the mindset of this country. So it's not going to be easy to dismantle. The founding fathers of America, by the way, they were influenced by in many aspects by Jewish religion as well. They were well versed in the Torah, in the Bible, and the morality that actually provides the underpinning of the country and the Constitution, right? It's all coming from there. But Israel, and my time practicing law, doesn't have, allows me to do that, to say that Israel doesn't have a formal constitution, right? The basic laws that you alluded to, they're nothing. In America, the constitution is also being erased, but it's still very much part of the national memory. Matthew, you want to add anything to that? You have
it kills me, because I was just having this conversation with, and I seem like I have it all the time. We're as Americans, we believe America's number one. America's the best. We're the greatest, and we hear it all the time. But then you grow up and you realize how horrible America really is, because they've abandoned the Constitution. And for me, it's a huge upset. And when you think about the fact that this really is a worldwide phenomenon, where could we go? I mean, assuming I could relocate, I couldn't afford it, but if I wanted to leave, where would I go? To France? They're doing the same thing in France. They're doing it in Canada. It seems like there's probably only maybe a handful of, Cambodia or United Arab Emirates or somewhere in the Belgian Congo. I don't know if that's even a nation anymore, but it seems like every major industrialized country, they all have the same child support thing. And so for that reason, it just goes to show you how worldwide this whole Holocaust has truly become. And they do the same thing, anything to create a non-custodial parents. Once they turn us into non-custodial parents, then we become child support obligors. Once you're on the hook, they can levy your bank accounts. They can, garnish your wages. And my thought is I think back that if I knew what I knew now, the day one in my family court case, I would have raised my hand and say, "Hey, I volunteer to be a child support obligor. I don't care. I'll pay her. I really don't care." I know a lot of the fellas really begrudge it, and I appreciate that. But me personally, I don't care. I'll pay her. I just want to see my kids. But they take away the kids as a pretext to saying, well, the other one has custody and you need to pay child support. And I just don't think they should be using the custody as a means of, taking your kids as a means of, making it a
Extortion.
child support obligation. And I just
Yeah.
wonder, what is Thailand? Did they do this? I saw Thailand come up on the screen. In fact, I don't know of any country where they don't do this. I wonder, like Argentina, do they do this in Argentina? Or um, it's a Holocaust. I think Justice J is 100% correct. And hello,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Martin,
Uh,
really a
you have
shame.
knowledge about what's going on in Argentina. And by the way, I have, fortunately or unfortunately, like more than 90% of the viewership that I'm blessed with is actually lurkers. So these people who don't identify themselves, and I understand, people who are probably, majority of them are parents. Some of them probably are from the court, from the government. I don't care. We are not doing anything illegal. We are utilizing our First Amendment as long as it still stands and it's under attack. But so if anyone is here from Argentina or from Thailand, please chime in. But from the sample of countries that Matthew, you and I actually had here on the show, right? Again, Canada, Netherlands, all the states. I think we had people from Colorado, from chiming in from West Virginia, from North Carolina, right? California and Nevada represented by you, New York and state of Washington, Seattle by me. So it's we see that it's everywhere. I don't think it's escapable. I don't think there's any place now. But Martin, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you have any knowledge from other countries, it would be interesting.
I haven't been to Argentina for a while now, but I hear, or what I can hear from a relative of mine is that he also has been having issues in Argentina with the custody of her little one, and of his little one. I'm sorry. And yes, it seems that we are talking about a Holocaust and the end of the traditional family as we know it all around the world, at least in the civilized world. And I gather that we should be playing the game a different way. I mean, not building. We should not be building a traditional family, but building it up in a different way. But that's a talk for another perhaps program, not this one. Okay.
Yeah, and you're always welcome anytime. It's very interesting. I think,
But I want I wanted to refer to Matthew's point about the child support payments and the custody. Okay, at the same time, because yes, it is true. I mean, governments are using the custody as leverage, as a means of extortion, in order for pressure men to pay child support payments. Okay, and that's a crime against humanity, which Israel has been doing all the way long for at least 30 years. And that's a second or a third crime against humanity that we are mentioning here in this program in regard to Israel. Okay, so we have first of all the entrapment in this open prison in Israel, which I've been suffering off for the past 12 years. Also, the extortion in regard to child support payments. Also, we have mentioned the alienation of children, and I must highlight that the alienation of children is compared to sex abuse. I mean, there are studies that mention that. Okay, and we mentioned that in our petition. Okay, so we have
no, Martin,
mentioned.
I don't want to stop you, but I have to add a caveat here because as you can see here,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so because I'm a man. We have the right now it's the father's show,
Yes.
but
Yes.
we had the mother show, and actually again based on the statistics, and I'm not saying that I'm the most popular content creator right on these social media platforms, but it seems that I have some exposure, and more than 50% of my audience is actually women. So
Okay.
and you can see right now, right, Justice J, Christina. Um, Amy Jester just joined. So that's a small sample of people who are active, who are watching, investing their time. Why? Because they're experiencing the same thing, on the other end. Now, I'm not saying, and I wouldn't deny that, and nobody rational, either a woman or a man, can deny that the majority of family court victims in the world are still fathers, right? But we are seeing a shift toward women as well, and there are alienated mothers there. I know quite a few here in New York myself. So we need to be very conscious about what government is doing, because the whole goal throughout history, right, was divide and conquer. What the government
Yes.
wants is to divide the population to the smallest possible chunks, right, in order for them to fight each other, right? And then the government just takes over, because when people fight with each other, they don't see who is actually what is, like there's interesting clip now making rounds on the internet that two cats are running after a laser point, right? And then one cat actually sees the hand that moves the laser. So that's what they want to avoid. They want us not to see the hand that's moving the laser, right? And it's men against women, women against men. The most insidious thing, as you alluded to, alienation, right, is of course children against their own parents. But it all happened in history before. So in communism, I was born in Soviet Russia. That's how the Soviets started, right? They took away the parents, they killed the parents, right? And then you had orphan children who formed the basis for the Communist Party. People who were not raised in a normal home, they became the executioners of the Bolshevik Revolution and further on, right? So and that's another point that I'm trying to drive home all the time, is that even division into countries is also an artificial creation, right? Because essentially what we are seeing by conversation like the one that we are having right now is it's the same policy everywhere in Australia, in New Zealand. There's a guy from Japan, right? You come from Israel. It's everywhere. It's not about Americans. It's not about Nevadians. It's not about New Yorkers. It's not about Jews in Israel. It's about crushing the population. Okay, and
Yes.
and it's not about men and women either, right? So for some reasons, and we can talk about that's a hefty topic, right? The government started with women, right? In order, but right now, for plausible deniability, you see thousands of women actually being thrown under the bus, right? And I am also an
Yes.
aggrieved father, but to deny the fact that government is actually now targeting more and more women, that's denying reality,
Yes.
right? And speaking of alienation, we shouldn't alienate that part of the the public, because by the way, I also want to add that I'm a member of a couple of parental alienation groups in Israel, and you see mothers being alienated in Israel as well, losing custody, and
Yes.
so the tyrants, they don't care whom to eat, right? So I think Israel will follow the lead here, the lead of America as well, because now fathers are more organized, fathers are making shows like this. So the government, in order to deny us the argument, right, they start now oppressing mothers more and more. So that's just
Yes.
a footnote that I want to make, because again, my activism is public, right? And I wanna mention to the mothers that are watching that, or mothers who follow me, right, that we fathers, at least sensible fathers, do acknowledge that the final goal of the government is to divide and conquer. So sorry about
Yes.
the long rant here, but I had to insert it. Matthew, you wanna add anything?
Oh, yes. I want to say the same thing, because I really believe that the time I got trapped in the family court quicksand, probably around 2018, and I think that was in the whole Me Too movement thing was in full swing, and I think it was real easy for females to get restraining orders back then. But what I've noticed in the past couple of years, particularly in California, they're going after the women now, and I believe it's a concerted effort to do what they're doing to the men. They really don't care. The government doesn't care who they screw over. But I see women who are complaining about domestic violence, or complaining about some kind of child molestation. And I'm seeing women having their kids taken from them because they initiate a complaint, and they say that I'm the victim of violence or my children, but just the mere allegation of that is enough to take the kid away, and they'll say you're lying about this, you're making it up, and it's absolutely unbelievable. And so I tell people all the time, don't get hung up on gender, because I don't think family court has anything to do with gender. They're really just there to destroy families, period. And they'll pick on the men for a while, and then pick on the women. Just classic divide and conquer. And we have to remember, we shouldn't be arguing, the women or the men. It's the people above us. That's the ones that are the problem. And I just had to throw in that rant also, because it's really a shame the way that they are, what I believe is purposely doing a reverse sort of discrimination. Maybe it's to silence the men, or maybe they figure they just want to, well, regardless of the motives, I think it's definitely happening, this form of reverse discrimination. And we have to remember, it's really not about gender. It's about them destroying families and trying to implement the 40 tenets of communism that was published, I guess, in the 60s. And we see it happening now. They want to control the American family. They want to control reproduction. They want to control raising of the kids, the indoctrination, the brainwashing, the inculcation of children. And all they have to do is keep the parents out of the picture, and the government can be the one in charge. And I fear that what's happening is these children are now believing that the judge is the true parent. I don't do what mommy and daddy says. I do what the judge says. So that child's going to grow up thinking the state is the parent. The state is almighty. And that's a problem. That has to be, it has to be changed. I mean, I'm losing my voice and I'm really getting angry thinking about this, but this has to stop. I believe this Holocaust will end one day. I really believe we shall overcome. I think one day in the future, we'll all look back and say, I can't believe the government did that to the people. But in the meantime, we fight on.
Yeah, I think that the best way of fighting it right now is, again, this show, or myself and Matthew and Martin, you as well, we're not advocating for any type of violence. All that's needed is just to speak about that. All that's needed at this stage. Because the way government structures the systems of oppression is by creating artificial consensus. If nobody speaks out, right, there's no problem, and we see that time and time again, right? They try to impose something on the population. We saw the insanity that lasted for 2 years. It still continues in the sense that our episode 1 got censored, one of them on YouTube, Matthew. So there's certain names that or of certain diseases and certain so-called therapies, right? We wouldn't mention in order not to be removed off the air, but that's the same way it works. Nobody opposes it in the massive government propaganda, right? Okay, everybody accepts it as reality. No, that's not the reality, right? And shows like ours, like us talking to each other and sharing information, that shows that no, we are not that stupid. Not everybody is stupid. We understand what you are doing, governments everywhere. You are divide and conquer. Your goal is the kids. You want to break us. You want to break the children. You want to divide us into countries, into, I don't like the word gender, into sexes, right? By ages, by religious affiliation, by territorial affiliation. Of course, the color of the skin. The views. What? Gender is worth another footnote. The word gender was not actually used. I made a post about that as extensively as it's used today, up until a certain point that the government started using it. And why? Why? There are no, because there are only two sexes, but there can be, as many genders, right? As sorry, as the person identifies with, right? And what it creates a split within certain individual. So it follows the same pattern. The same pattern is divide and conquer, right? So you can have very, very similar people, but suddenly they identify as somebody else, right? And within this gender artificial category, right? So you create a split even within a homogeneous population. And of course, that's real, minefield that I won't get into the show, but this whole transgender, right? This whole, propaganda, rainbow propaganda that we're seeing every time, it pursues the same agenda, which is the agenda of, discouraging and eventually preventing procreation. So, Martin, sorry, that's still our show, so I didn't mean to cut you off, but there's some comments that we should enter. What else do you have? We're coming up on an hour. That's usually the time we jump off, and we can always have a sequel.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to highlight?
No, I just I was talking about the crimes against humanity being committed by Israel, and we so far I was saying that we have mentioned three of them, but then again we have mentioned the most relevant crimes against humanity. But then again, it's very important to highlight that we cannot not afford ourselves to be like any other country around the world. I mean, if we have, with great effort, built up this country, I mean, Israel, well, we have to look for it. Okay, we have to take after it. Okay, I mean, we must care about it. So that's my point.
Yeah. Jason, your client TMP has joined. He's saying, giving you kudos for stating that state judges have replicated the biological parent. So I think there's another topic that we maybe will briefly highlight: parental alienation. So the government is fighting even the use of the term, and I'm sure it's the same in Israel because we're seeing it. Canada is essentially trying to ban it. They're preparing the popular opinion. I alluded to that. There's Senator Hoylman, who is the chair of the Judicial Committee here in the Senate of New York. He brought this topic up without being asked. So it's parental alienation, mocking it. They don't like it. They don't like the term. So why, if government doesn't like something, it means we are onto something very, very, very significant, very core. And I think precisely that's Matthew, what you are saying, because government is removing the parents, right? One of the parents, and then the second one in many cases, because CPS comes in, swoops in, and then the children disappear into the bowels of the Moloch of the foster system, right? And then the children are declared as runaways, and who knows what happens to them? And we can, assume what happens to them. But fundamentally, what the government wants to replace the parent, right? And you see that, for example, in supervised visits. I know it's a scourge of Israel as well. The what they call the connection centers, right? Merkazei Kesher, they call it. So what is supervised visitation? Supervised visitation is essentially it's a very, very sophisticated, very slimy way by the government to remove your parental authority while using the plausibility and deniability of, you are still a parent, right? So you are taken into some sort of small, tiny, moldy room, right, with some sort of social worker who many times don't have any type of educational background, right? And they supervise your interaction with your own child. So what does it convey to the child? My father needs to be, supervised. So it's potential danger to me, right? And then the social worker just actually, bosses you around, come into the room, go out of the room, you cannot talk about that, you talk about that, right? So what it does to your parental authority? Nothing. What the child learns, there's somebody more important than my father, right? Or mother, in rarer cases. And who is the more important? It's the government. The government is more important. The government can boss my parents around, right? The government gets to decide. So it's a very, very sophisticated way. But what essentially government is doing is replacing the parents, right? And this is points to the same agenda that we need to constantly be aware of. It's an agenda of totalitarian takeover, of the population everywhere by dividing and conquer, right? So that's what we're seeing. Another thing that you touched upon briefly, Martin, if I may, you said that the suicide. I think Israel is doing a better job actually. The Israeli fathers, from what I see, fighting that. Keeping actually tabs on what's going on with in the majority of cases, fathers, right? Because they cannot leave the country, they cannot change the scenery even, right? They cannot drive the car. They take the license. We know all that, right? So there was a famous case that I remember. A father actually. Victim hanged himself over Ayalon, one of the main highways in Israel. So it actually made the headlines. So I'm not sure in America it's done, even though the same phenomenon exists here. I know that in the UK there's a big group that actually does follow, but and there was a publication I think a couple of days ago in that stock forum that another father took his life. But I think in Israel, actually, fathers are keeping tabs, right, and watching each other to the extent possible. So it's an amazing, horrific phenomenon that people just lose hope. You wanna add something to that?
Well, there's no max to add. I mean, you have said it all. I mean, fathers do lose hope about living, and they just, as you said it. I mean, they hang themselves. They commit suicide in different ways. And it's very important to highlight that those fathers are not crazy. They are not mentally ill. They are just fine. I mean, they just been put in a situation that there's no way out. So the only way out is for them is to commit suicide. Okay, it's sad, but we are not talking about sick fathers, mentally sick fathers. We are talking about normative persons here that has suffering from a great pressure, a great deal of pressure, but the state, in this case, the state of Israel, and they have come to that end. I mean, to that, they have reached the point that they have committed suicide. Okay. Um,
Yeah. So
and also, I'm recalling Matthew saying something about the indoctrination. Okay, and it's happening. I mean, the indoctrination is happening also in Israel. Not a long while ago. We are talking about a month ago, perhaps. My children, they attend school as every single kid, every single child, and they're an intermediate school now. And I got told that they were coming to school, a group of women, in order to talk about women's rights. Okay, so I said to myself, wait a second, there's something here that's off, that's not right. I mean, I can accept groups talking about rights, but if you talk about rights dealing with women, then you must talk about rights dealing with men as well. Okay, so I sensed that there was something that was wrong about that, and afterwards I learned by my boy. I have a boy and a girl. Okay, and I learned by my boy that many kids complained about that talk at school. And I wrote a letter to the principal of that school saying that my children won't take part in that indoctrination plan that they have. So the indoctrination, I mean, has come to a lower level. I mean, they are entering schools in order to brainwash the minds of our kids. So I don't know how all this is gonna end up, but we for sure are living a Holocaust, the end of the traditional family as we know it, and the best way to win this game is not to participate. I mean, not to build a family in the traditional way. And for sure, we must be united in order to fight this corrupt legal system, destroying the very basic cell of society, which is the family. Um, that is.
yeah. Um, Yeah, that's a hefty topic. What are the solutions? Now, I don't want to be too cynical, but I heard in my private conversations with people that they want to sue other countries in the American courts and bring some sort of class action. Class action seems to be like magic incantation that people use. But we have an esteemed attorney here who tried. I'm not saying this case is done; it's far from being done. But Matthew filed a class action in the California District Federal Court, and it was dismissed on motion to dismiss, right? As they often do. And there's a plenty of doctrines that they use just to, brush off the cases. So that's what happened. So if there are people who are naive enough to think that American courts will provide any type of remedy, there's nothing to add. It is naive. And my personal opinion that all the line of thinking of going to the UN court, Matthew, you alluded to that, all the international institutions are part of the same agenda. We see that in every avenue,
Yes.
everything, like World Health Organization, right? And the UN, of course, UNESCO. We had the guest from Netherlands. He tried. He went. He personally filed, but he's well versed in what's going on in Europe. It doesn't help. International Criminal Court. In some marginal cases, when they want to throw a bone to the population to prevent public revolt, right? Then it takes years, to get something. By the time your kids are completely alienated or removed, or the damage is already done. So we need to understand that the legal system is not the solution. And I don't know what is the complete solution, right? But I think the solution is actually to in some way to separate from the government, not to participate in their discourse, and to have conversations like we are having right now, right? Because essentially what government is doing fundamentally, and I keep misquoting Orwell, right? But government uses two main pillars to control the population, right? One is force, another is deception. Okay, so or it's a threat of force because they don't have enough people. They can, if we allow that, they will come into enough power, like happened in Soviet Union or in Germany, when half population was in jail or in Gulag, and the other half was actually guarding them. Right? We are not yet there, so they don't have the manpower to enslave us completely. But they don't have yet the force. But what they have right now is the propaganda machine, and we have an unprecedented technological infrastructure right now, like Facebook, like these lives, right? Like the microphones, the cameras, that the setup that would cost millions just a couple decades ago, in order to spread awareness. So the government cannot control aware, free-minded people, and that's what we need to be doing, right? And that's we need. That's why I keep bringing the point. I understand that you come from Israel and from the pain of Israel, and believe me, I'm very much connected to that pain, right? But it's not different from the pain of fathers, who are not Jews, right? Or mothers who who are in Florida, right? And we do see women who actually sympathize and empathize with fathers, right? Or second marriages, or even without that, like you have intelligent women who understand that it actually hurts women. Like what you were saying, right? Government that achieves its goal, people will not form couples, right? And what happens? Man is a natural provider, right? And what will happen? If men check out of the system, that's society will crumble. Now we need to understand that that's exactly what government wants. It's part of the plan.
Yes.
So we are at a lose-lose situation, right? Because if you have children, they will alienate them, take them, ship them over to foster system, break them psychologically, right? So or just you yourself, you refuse to participate in the game. So this is a very heavy topic, but that's something that we need to be covering and discussing and raising all the time, because some people have the courage, like yourself, to show their faces, to show their names, right? Create petitions, participate in the shows. Like Matthew is one of the rarest attorneys, I think, in the world, actually, who is willing to come and talk about these issues. If we had more attorneys, the system wouldn't deteriorate to the current stage. But we have literally a handful. I cannot find maybe 5 attorneys, and I think I'm very connected to the field, parental alienation, who are as vocal and active and knowledgeable as T. Matthew Phillips here. So we have that's what we need to build. We need to build the confidence, right, for those who are watching, who and the majority are still just lurking. Anyway, that's my spiel. Toward the end of the stream, I want to acknowledge people who joined. Derek is here. Exposure is key. Amy is here. I mentioned Jason D'Souza here. Jacob, all the way from Colorado. I put your comments on. So follow him. Very, very interesting. Very, very knowledgeable process litigant with a couple notes. So just please review the comments. And apologies to those who I couldn't mention. I think that's enough for today. Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Matthew, you wanna just add something, or any parting words for you, Martin? Just feel free.
Well, I want to thank our guest. It was a terrific show today, and it's really very thought-provoking. And every time I think about somebody, a man taking their life, or a woman, because There's a couple of women I've heard about also that end up, and I think that the government really wants that to happen, whether it's by the toxins, that they give people, or, but they're really wanting to do this global population reduction. And I think part of that agenda comes through the family court. So that's part of my, well, that's my final thought, I guess.
Any final words from you, Martin? And thanks again. I know it's late by your
Well,
side.
I just want to thank you for having me. It was indeed a terrific show. I'm very glad that I've been here talking with you. I hope I made an input for other people. I helped other fathers in order to clear things out about the situation about Israel. And any comments about the petition, and any questions, I'm here, and I will be glad if there Israeli fathers or any single father that has suffered from the corrupt system of Israel, has suffered from crimes against humanity committed by the State of Israel, please do sign the petition. All right? We'll try. We'll make our best efforts to bring your call, to bring your voices in order to be heard. And we are going to fight. We are going to fight against this Holocaust happening. Okay? Mm-hmm. And then again, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for joining the show. We'll keep you posted, and you please keep us posted. We can always reconvene, and we'll do that. I did share your petition. I think I see that the people will be looking for that. I'll post the links. Everybody will be able to find you. I tagged you on my Facebook page.
Thank you.
So we'll keep the conversation going. That's important, and this is the solution. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, everybody who watched. Please share. And we'll see you hopefully next week. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.